In Cherokee County, Colorado, there was a man that was a miner. And he sold everything he had. He made sacrifices. He faced the elements. He faced the wild beasts. He faced packs of wolves. He had experiences absolutely that were, traditionally, could have been destructive to him. He was a man of nature. He was an outdoorsman. But he had worked long and hard and arduously on a claim he had staked, and he found nothing. Finally, one day, he gave up, and he told his barber, "I'm through. I'm quitting. I'm not going to work another day." Well, a man that would work so hard like that, a man that would totally give himself and learn the disciplines of, facing the elements and really making sacrifices of that nature, that man's going to be successful in anything. So he left and he went into insurance, and he became a very, very successful insurance man. But he gave his barber his claim. And his barber went out to the claim and dug down 2 inches and made the largest gold strike ever in the history of Colorado. And I want you to understand that there's times it seems that, God will hide himself from people. It's in times like this when we're fasting and praying that God reveals himself to you. Now, he may not reveal himself to you in the fast. I'm just going to tell you right now, I've fasted and prayed, and God didn't speak a thing to me. I went off one time to a hotel and got by myself and fasted and prayed, and God didn't say anything to me. I was on my way home on an airplane, and the Lord spoke to me. And I remember that word as clearly as I can remember my mother calling my name. I mean, it was a word from God. And I went off one time and fasted and prayed in a hotel, and God told me everything I needed to know. And so there are seasons that God will speak to you clearly when you're fasting and praying. And other times it seems as though God hides himself. How many of you have ever had that experience? Philippians chapter 2, verse 12. It says, "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and do of his own good pleasure." It is God that works in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. "Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless, children of God, without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. Yes, and if I'm being poured out as a drink offering on the sacrifice and service of your faith, I'm glad and rejoice with you all." Now that word is work out. Everybody say work out. How many of you like to work out? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, in this fasting, you're working out. You're working out. Say, you're working out. You're working out. Your spiritual man is working. You just don't know how flabby your spiritual man has become. And so all of these years ago, God gave me this word, work out. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Now, actually, this word doesn't mean what you think. It says work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it's God that works in us both to will and to do of his own good pleasure. Now, here's the cool thing that you need to know, because you have been so frustrated with him at times. You see, it's the nature of God to hide from the unresponsive and the disinterested. You need to write that down. That's the reason I can come in here and pastors can go into their pulpits and men of God can preach and people are not touched and moved. Why? I mean, they're preaching great truth. Because God hides. Listen to what I'm saying. God hides from those that, just have a disinterest for him. Remember what it said about Jesus? Jesus didn't reveal himself to all of them because he knew what was in them. Is there a possibility that God is hiding from you? What are the things right now that God cannot show Cleddy Keith? Forget you. Just think about me. What are the things he can't show me? There are things possibly that God cannot show me. And so the dark side of God, that nature of God to hide himself from the unresponsive people that don't respond to truth. It's as though God just withdraws himself from them. Have you ever wrestled with that? Is there a possibility God is not responding to you because you're unresponsive? People who are really digging in and who have a conviction of want in their life. I've always said I'd much rather preach to people that want to hear what I have to say more than I want to say it. And so what I see here is something really beautiful, because this friend of mine's father got up and he said, you know, the word work out is a Greek word, and the meaning of that word is you have to mine. You have to dig down into the Word of God. You have to mine. You have to mine. Write that out on the side. The Greek historian Strobos uses that word, and that word is to mine. What about this poor guy, this barber? Well, bless him, he had a good business, and I'm sure he went on to have a good life. But he was just 2 inches from striking pay dirt. He was just 2 inches from making the biggest gold strike in the history of Colorado. 2 inches. How close are you? How much more effort would it take on your part? Are you working out your own salvation with fear and trembling? Or are you just kind of sitting back and saying, I'm content and I can do my own thing? Now, I want you to know God withdraws himself from people that are unresponsive to him. I mean, how many of you, it's in your nature, if somebody doesn't respond to you, you just withdraw from them? Come on. I'm telling you, it's in our nature like that too, because it's in God's nature. Don't be surprised. And so the nature of God is to hide himself from people that are disinterested. But if you start mining, you start making sacrifices, you're fasting and praying, and you're meeting together in this house in the mornings, and you're crying out to God, or you're not rolling over, you're rolling out, getting on your prayer bones. He said the smallness you feel is from your own affections. And so when you begin to sense that you're bottled up, you're fenced in, you know what your responsibility is? Your responsibility is to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Start mining. Start digging into the Word of God. Start finding some truth.